music. You are now entering a parallel universe.
And wipe your feet on the way in.
Marc Riley, BBC Six Music.
I did always wonder why they fade out during the rap, but it's a great record, that Petrol Emotion, big decision, and the big decision now is, do we go over to Beverley or not? Of course we do. It's Bob Hughes. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Yeah, fine, thanks, fella, fine.
Great. We've just been watching Planes, Trains and Automobiles because obviously it's Thanksgiving in the States and we watch it, every Thanksgiving, because it's just a classic. Never fails to hit the spot.
It really is one of the greats. And I tell you what, I watched an afternoon version of it not that long ago, and they...
Oh...
You know where this is going, don't you?
I do, yeah.
They cut out all the expletives of Steve Ujit having a go at the lady at the airport.
Yes, I know, which is such a great scene, isn't it? But it doesn't mean anything without the expletives, sadly.
It doesn't at all. I was so crestfallen when that happened, and I'm a sensitive beast, so as you know.
So I've been told, yeah. But anyway, we looked at the NME here, 19th of September 1987. Big Decision is a great record. That Petrol Emotion are in the news as they're leaving Polydor Records. Have already lined up a new major label, which they believe will be more supportive. An official announcement of the move is expected soon. The heart of the matter is Polydor's apparent lack of faith in the band, which has now prompted them to obtain a move. The band, last week's NME cover stars, are known to have become increasingly disillusioned with Polydor in recent months, and the source of their discontent is the fact that most of the key personnel responsible for originally signing and promoting the band have now left the label. The Petrols believe that the new staff had paid scant attention to them. This is always a chance that bands take, isn't it? You get somebody who's really, really kind of understands you. Here's me as if I'm talking from experience. Understands the band. Loves what they do, and then suddenly they're not there anymore, and you don't have a champion.
I think it's called a key man clause or something like that, isn't it? But, yeah, you're exactly right, because the bottom line is that if the A&R man signs you, A&R man, A&R woman, and then moves on, and somebody else comes in, they won't particularly be interested in you having great success because they didn't sign you in the first place. So they'll go out and have a look for somebody else. Somebody once told me, interestingly, about the A&R kind of scenario, is that you are better off not signing anybody because the chances of them making money, even back in the day, and never mind now, even back in the day, was so minimal that at the end of the year you were best off just having a line through it and you're broken even, rather than you've lost them £200,000 signing 4 bands for 50 grand each or something. And it's a funny little insight into the industry at that point in time. Would imagine it's even more difficult now.
Yeah, I can see the logic, albeit like twisted logic in that. I mean, if you don't take a risk, you're not going to lose money, are you?
No.
I kind of see that.
I mean, I mentioned Caroline Ellery on this programme before, but I mean, if she had that philosophy, she wouldn't have discovered Coldplay. And for anybody who wants to be facetious now, please step in. But I don't. A massive band and made millions of pounds for lots of people. So, eventually you have got to put your pen to paper, haven't you? But the philosophy was, don't bother, as I understand it and remember it.
Okay. Also on the news page, Tom Waits returns to Britain in November for his first live shows in 2 years. Going to be promoting his new album, Frank's Wild Years, which went straight into the top 20 this week. He'll be backed by the same musicians he used on his 1985 dates, which included 8 sellout shows at the Dominion in London. Goes through the musicians, including Ralph Carney and Marc Ribot, or Ribot, on guitar. Great musicians both. I'm just wondering, Waits in the 80s was perhaps for the first time finding a voice, because in the 70s you could argue that he was just trying on these different, or acting out a persona that he found attractive and really wasn't really being truthful, if you know what I mean.
It was like an act, wasn't it? I mean, that barfly, the drunken barfly mumbling away whilst drunk, whilst not really drunk. And they did find a voice, and it was Captain Beefheart's, as we know. And I'm not being kind of too cruel there because, I mean, I think I've probably said before, but it has been recognised that his partner introduced him to Captain Beefheart in the 80s, who he didn't know for some reason. And all of a sudden he was doing 16 shells from a 30-06, which is just Captain Beefheart. And Rain Dogs has got an awful lot of Captain Beefheart in it as well. So not being cruel or unnecessarily nasty, just an observation.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Also in the news, big news this week, Michael Jackson's Bad is breaking records even as you read this. Certified double platinum in the first week of release and straight into the charts at number 1. His new album sold nearly as many copies as the rest of the top 30 put together. In America, the ship out of the album, more than 2.25 million, was the biggest in CBS history. And directly underneath that, you've got Bruce Springsteen's long-awaited follow-up to Born in the USA has been held up due to the overwhelming success of Bad. CBS pressing plants are working to capacity on the album, which means that Springsteen's album, Tunnel of Love, has been put back until October. A single, however, called Brilliant Disguise is going to be out on Monday. I bet he wasn't very happy about that.
Probably not, no. But I mean, that scheduling is a thing, isn't it? I mean, was it Bowie's first album that came out the same week as Sgt. Pepper?
I think it was the same day, wasn't it?
Same day, yeah.
Didn't stand a chance.
It might have had something else to do with it as well, the fact that it wasn't such a great album, was it? But anyway, it certainly wasn't Sgt. Pepper.
Very possibly. Clem Burke recently announced that the Ramones' new drummer for their forthcoming UK tour has left. The former Blondie member was drafted in as a last-minute replacement for Richie Ramone, but has now quit due to personality differences. His last-minute replacement is Marky Ramone, who replaced Tommy Ramone in 1978, but who left during the sessions for Subterranean Jungle in 1983, also due to personality differences. This is Clem Burke. I think he only played 2 gigs with them, didn't he, as Elvis Ramone, I believe.
Oh, well, that's right. I was going to say, was he Clemmy Ramone, but he wasn't. You're dead right, yeah, I remember that
Elvis.
now. And of course, I mean, you know, there were some difficult characters in there, particularly Johnny by the sound of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Also in the news, this one completely passed me by at the time. A new youth cult has sprung up in the trendy nighteries of Manchester called the Baldrick. The Baldricks take their name from the character in the Blackadder TV series. They've made the hairstyle a curious combination of 70s Page Boy and latter-day Bob all their own. The overall look is distinctly Renaissance. This striking crop is combined with seriously ugly high-tack shirts, courtesy of Manchester-style emporium Affleck's Palace, worn with tasteless semi-flared cords or jeans. This sartorial confusion is combined with musical idiosyncrasy. Baldricks favour obscure 60s psychedelia and Chicago house.
Oh, mate,
I don't remember this, Mark. Did you?
No, Michelle's shaking her head. I don't remember it either. I mean, if only I would have been in there like a shot.
Absolutely, me too. I wonder if the NME just made it up because they don't have a picture of a Baldrick, so instead they've just put a picture of Dick Emery in instead on the page here. So I'm not sure what that's about.
Well, we've mentioned before, certainly, the fact that the NME did go through a particularly mischievous phase, didn't it? Around about now, you know,
yes.
And with Seething Wells and Stuart McConey and people like that. So, yeah, maybe a pinch of salt is required on this particular occasion, sadly.
I think so. Very brief news here. A TV series based around the man who fell to Earth could be. ABC TV in the States have run a 2-hour pilot with Lewis Smith in the David Bowie role. So, again, this is all news to me. I wonder if you had any foreknowledge of that.
None, but funnily enough, we were talking today about Bill Nighy, who is doing Guy Garvey's programme.
Oh, yeah.
And he starred, apparently, in the sequel to The Man Who Fell to Earth as Thomas Jerome Newton, but I didn't know that either.
Wow, that's news to me. Wow. I've learned it. That's 3 things I've learned already. I've only been on for 10 minutes. We should really go to the indie charts, do you think?
Are we going to go to the Pixies then and Caribou?
I think so, yes.
Okay, mate. Pixies and Caribou. Mark Riley here, singing away, entertaining Bob Hughes if nobody else.
Oh, that was very entertaining, mate. The NME here, 19th of September 1987. James Brown is infuriated by sampling. He says, anything they take off my record is mine. Is it all right if I take some paint off your house and put it on mine? Can I take a button off your shirt and put it on mine? Can I take a toenail off your foot? Is that all right with you? Etc, etc. You can see his point, though, can't you? He is one of the most sampled artists of all time. I think it's something like over 5,000 now, and Funky Drummer is the big one, isn't it? So many hip-hop artists have taken samples from that.
Of course, but I mean, I suppose I am second guessing here, but I am supposing that when the time came that people had to start paying for samples, he probably didn't mind quite so much, which is fair enough. I mean, you know, I don't know if it was just the art, but I mean, taking stuff and not paying for it, it was all that Napster stuff, wasn't it? Which and the sampling, which and people weren't getting the just desserts, were they? Really?
Yeah, no, which of course is wrong. In the news too, Level 4 42 are the first British band to have a compact disc video on sale, even though CDV players will not be available till end of the year. Their new single, It's Over, is in the shops now in CDV form, containing 20 minutes of music and 5 minutes of video. The audio portion can be played on any existing CD player, but the video bit will remain unseen until the CDV players hit the shops at Christmas. The machines, which are being pioneered by Philips, will sell for around £500, and therein lies the problem, doesn't it? Because it's okay, you're thinking, right, everybody's trying to come up with new technology, what can we do next, what's the next level? But if you're not making it affordable, it's never going to take off.
Well, machines always get cheaper, don't they? To have a video recorder when they started off was a real big deal. But I do remember I was one of the very few people who had a Laserdisc player.
Did you?
Yeah, because people did say, that's a real quality in there against a DVD. Well, of course, Laserdiscs just went straight out the window, really, and DVDs became DVDs.
Yeah,
I tell you, the weird thing, though, with Level 42, just mentioned before, Coldplay being the butt of jokes and eyes rolling and stuff. Level 42 got a lot of that as well, and I have to just say, for the record, that Marc King is one of the best people I've ever met. He's an absolute gent.
Do you know, I'm so glad you said that, because, they have been an easy target, haven't they? And I love Marc King because he bought a pint for me, Mike Joyce, at a Six Music Festival a few years back, and he was such a lovely, sweet player. He really was.
Don't take this the wrong way. He bought a pint for everybody. He's such a brilliant and generous guy, and I don't know him that well, but what I know of him, I really, really like him. He's a top man.
Yeah, totally. And Brix Bargeld of Einsturzender Neubauten is interviewed here, telling the NME about being back after 2 years away. The world is just catching up with Neubauten's past. Innovations of a few years back are now common language, talking of sampling, especially for sampler pirates who use bashing bits of metal together as surface-level fashionable accoutrements. However, their new album 5 on the open-ended Richter scale marks their return from self-imposed exile as anything but caricatures of their former selves, since it doesn't assault the senses in the familiar physical noise overload manner. You could say they've gone soft, but you'd be wrong. And he goes on to explain, which makes sense in the fact that he would see this as a radical manoeuvre. They've just gone and made songs with song structures in them, rather
people
than
people wouldn't have been expecting it, which is the curveball. Fair enough.
Yeah, cool. Other albums out, you got Mercy by Steve Jones and Happy by Public Image Limited, which gets a kick in, but there's some great stuff on there.
Okay, this is Seattle. Public Image Limited and Seattle, Mark Riley and Bob Hughes, Parallel Universe.
Yeah, looking at the NME, 19th of September 1987. Just going back to that Public Image review, Happy, reviewed by Bieber Kopf, a.k.a. Chris Bond, of course, who gives it a bit of a slating. So after all these years, Johnny Rotten's still dining out on the one about his being the fishbone in the craw of the British bourgeoisie. Harpo marksing on about his outrage is one thing, living up to it is another, altogether more impossible task for a winded bag. And just reading this, you can sort of understand why John Lydon detested the breast so much for a long time in the 80s, because it seemed to be they had their knives out for him no matter what he produced.
Well, they made some great stuff, didn't they, in the 80s? There's no doubt about it. But I'll leave it there, I think.
Okay, fair enough. John McGeoch, I think, on guitar there, isn't he? I think.
Yeah, amazing. And you mentioned Mike Joyce before. Mike Joyce was a member as well of Public Image, wasn't he?
That's right. Bands on tour this week. You've got Bad Day for Eugene, the Derek Dugan 11, one for old football fans there.
Right.
Beverly Beanchurch, don't remember her?
No.
Cardiacs at the Mermaid in Birmingham, Primal Scream at Dundee Dance Factory, Pill at Derby Assembly Rooms, The Wedding Present at Norwich Arts Centre, Motorhead at the Tivoli in Buckley, Jesus and Mary Chain at Liverpool Royal Court, David Thomas, Perubu at the Library Theatre in Manchester, House Martins at Aberdeen Capital, That Petrol Emotion we heard before at Newcastle Mayfair, Towns Van Zandt at South Shields New Crown Hotel. Oh, I know you had him in the studio once, didn't you, on the nighttime show? Oh, wonderful.
We did. That's definitely one of those parallel universe time machine efforts for you, isn't it, particularly?
Oh, totally. And Tom Waits at Edinburgh Playhouse. And that Dick Morrissey at the Bass Clef in Islington, Mark.
Right, yeah, absolutely. He's a jazz player, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, Dick Morrissey. Yes, he was. Live reviews. We haven't got time to go into this in detail, but it is the infamous gig here. Einsturzender Neubauten, as mentioned before, and Shiwaddy on the same bill at the Kilburn National, reviewed by Jack Barron. I wonder who put that together.
Somebody with an eye for mischief. Brilliant.
It says here, Shawadi Waddy, come on. Anyway, the Dam Busters theme tune peeled out, unbounced Shawadi Waddy. Nobody screamed or fainted. In their wall-to-wall drapes, the band resembled the kind of curtains one might find in a colourblind Teddy Boys flat. One thought this was going to be good until in went the jack plugs and outflowed 30 years worth of musical effluent. Could things get worse? Yes, he says. Neubauten bombed as well because he started playing the newer stuff, which people weren't used to because, as I said before, it was all about song structures and they weren't ready for it, basically.
Right, okay. Well, we salute them anyway.
Absolutely.
All right, Bobby, I'm going to salute you as well now, all the way from over here to over there. And I'm going to wish you all the best for the weekend. And lovely to speak to you. And we'll catch up again next Tuesday, won't we?
We will do, mate, yeah. Have a good weekend.
Okay, pal, yeah. All right, then. So this is the Ramones and a real cool time.
Prepare to exit the parallel universe.
Marc Riley, BBC 6 Music.
And shut the door on your way out.